real eye-opener. I can't stress this enough. You should at least watch this free video online today. He explains everything you need to know, including simple steps you can take to protect yourself. You can find the video at www.endofamerica3.com. That's endofamerica, the number 3.com. Watch the free video at www.endofamerica3.com. That's endofamerica3.com.
Today is gonna be the day that they're gonna throw it back to you. By now you should have somehow realized what you gotta do. I don't believe that anybody feels the way I do about you now. Backbeat, the word is on the street that the fire in your heart is out. I'm sure you've heard it all before, but you never.
Okay, we're going to Max Keiser here in a moment, and he's going to be with us into the next hour a bit. We will then shift gears into some phone calls for Max with your economic questions after we've finished up with the callers that are currently on the line, military, police, and others. Are you concerned about the rebranding now? They're saying, okay, it was Al-Qaeda. Now it's anybody that doesn't like the Federal Reserve, and the Tea Party's going to blow you up. When they talk about Tea Party, they mean the real Ron Paul Tea Party, not the Rick Perry Republican co-opted Tea Party where they say, yeah, let's get the bankers. They're doing that because we're starting to win. I want to go back to Jake, a retired police officer in Chicago who's concerned about the militarization of police. We've got a bunch of other current police, former police, military, all with comments as well, and we will get to you. But first, I want to tell you about some of the sponsors that make this broadcast possible. eFoods Direct is celebrating their 30th anniversary with a great deal. Save 30% on the Freedom Unit one-year food supply. Here's your chance to save over $536 off their already low price for a one-year supply of the best storable foods on the planet. This price is even lower for the same volume of food than it was when they first started back in 1981. This offer ends soon, so act now. Quantities are limited. Be prepared before you need it. Act now. The letter E, that's efoodsdirect.com/Alex, efoodsdirect.com/Alex, or call 800-409-5633, 800-409-5633. They also have banners on Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. If you forget about those, you can follow it there. Also, Diamond Gusset. We try to have sponsors that are made in America. And this is all. The cotton's grown here. It's sewn here. Motorcycle jeans, regular jeans, other types of clothing. Great folks. Diamond Gusset jeans have a heat wave sale that you will not believe. Go to gussetclothing.com, G-U-S-S-E-T, gussetclothing.com, and take advantage of this buying opportunity. American-made quality and gusset comfort has never been so affordable. You have to try these jeans. They have marked down all of their most popular styles. The sale ends Sunday, August 21st, 2011, this Sunday. So make sure you go to gussetclothing.com today. Now, finishing up with the caller and then to Max Keiser. Jake, you were bringing up things that you're really concerned about, the militarization of police, the goonishness of all of it. And you said you saw something on the news that really concerned you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I get a call this morning. Somebody says, Dr. Jake, I sent you a link. Check it out. And I go on there and I see this thing where Obama is telling, I believe the guy's name is Assad, telling him to step aside. And I thought, who in the hell is he to tell somebody else to step aside? And that just blew my mind, that the gall of the way things are going, the way these people are acting towards other world leaders, telling them to get out of the way. Could you imagine if somebody from China told us, hey, stop doing this or that? We'd say, mind your own business, forget about it, and we'd go about our lives, right?
Yes.
And I see that the government is rapidly becoming more militarized in its function. As opposed to being more administrative, it is becoming more of a military operation. And like I had said earlier, when I see these local police departments with battering rams, guys in combat boots, think about if a woman called and said, I hear strange noises behind my house, could you please send a car? They send guys over there that look like military guys that would scare the hell out of children. And that's
it's all part of conditioning the public. They've had police chiefs admit that the black uniforms, the mask, it's meant to scare the public. They don't want police and the public being friends anymore. They want police to be revenue generators and enforcers, just like they are in Mexico. I mean, I remember going to Mexico 25 years ago, and the cops were dressed there like they're dressed here now. Same thing in North Korea. It's all about intimidation. God bless you, my friend. Look, we are going into a total depression designed by the mega banks to institute a financial dictatorship. And in the case of Assad, it is admitted that NATO, the United States, and Israel have been shipping arms across the border to radical Muslim groups, because he's got a secular government, to overthrow them. Just like they just helped overthrow Mubarak, the old dictator, and are putting in the Muslim Brotherhood. Only so they can have another war with the Shiites and others in a couple of years. The globalists are that cold-blooded. And I'm not saying Assad's a good guy, but yes, that's why they put Obama in and gave him a peace prize. Well, so people say, well, he's the man of peace. This is not a war in Libya. It is peace. You know, I was reading, I keep saying 4 months. The AP was reporting there's been a war in Libya now for 6 months. Remember Obama? War in Libya to last... In fact, guys, pull this up. Obama, headline, conflict to last days. Or Obama, NATO involvement to last days, not weeks. That involvement's 4.5 months. Been going on for a couple months before that. 6 months. They're blowing up their power plants, their water production. They're laying siege. They're killing civilians everywhere. Because he has been building up Africa and trying to create their own banking system. That is not... The Serbs tried to do that. Not allowed. Who'd they use to take out the Serbs? Al-Qaeda, Muslim extremist. Who'd they use to attack the Russians? Al-Qaeda. Who do they use to attack us so they can then take our rights away? Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda. Joining us is Max Keiser, and I really appreciate Max coming on the broadcast with us. He has TV shows with BBC, RT, Press TV, radio talk show host. You can go to his website, maxkeiser.com, and learn more. And he's an American broadcaster, filmmaker, and former equities broker. Worked with George Soros' son. I'll ask him about that someday. Keiser is the host of On the Edge, a program of news and analysis. Again, Max Keiser invented the Hollywood Stock Exchange virtual trading system, virtual specialist technology used on many stock markets today. He lives in Paris, and he joins us now from there via phone. Max, I want to cover the waterfront with you today. I thought that was a really informative interview we did last week with an InfoWars nightly news report. Well, really the precursor to that starting September 1st. It was a InfoWars special report. But I want to go over so much of what we see happening in the stock market, gold and silver exploding, where we are. I mean, I know you've predicted that we would continue to go into a depression, that you predicted that the euro would continue to collapse, and they would call for a super euro, a, quote, financial European Union, where now the bankers through France and Germany are going to be given total control over every facet of the nation state. Same thing happening here. The global banker occupation is accelerating. And again, I know I have you here talking about basically more of the same, but things are moving so much quicker. Now we're getting a clearer image of exactly what their plan is. We're seeing newspaper headlines every day in the U.S. Casinos are the answer, just like NAFTA and GATT were the answer. The casino gulag economy you talked about, virtual currencies and video game systems. That's now, we're being told, our new economy. I mean, this is literally something like out of a nightmare science fiction movie, Max.
Yeah, agreed. I think the interesting thing to look at today would be the French banks, okay, as the continuation of the story that you just told. Today, the French banks are collapsing, and in particular, Société Générale. And the Société Générale is basically the bank that got the huge bailout during the 2008 period. It is also where all of the derivatives that were on the books of AIG were moved. So when AIG was bailed out and vis-a-vis these French banks were bailed out, the bulk of the $600 trillion in derivatives, and this is a number that the Bank of International Settlements just confirmed this week. There are over $600 trillion in derivatives floating around in the banking system, and derivatives is just a fancy word for debt. Most of that debt now sits on the books of Société Générale in France, and that bank had a market cap of 160 billion. It's now down to 16 billion, and the rumor here in France is that they're going to go bankrupt and that they will need another massive state bailout. And this will trigger...
Well, let me stop you, Max, because we don't have the crew to go pull all this up, but you've predicted this, Bob Chapman, Webster Tarpley, Dr. Paul Craig Roberts. I mean, years ago, you guys said there's going to, after the first round of bailouts in the U.S. and Europe, there's going to be more and more bailouts. These aren't really bailouts. This is a debt derivatives black hole that we don't owe, that we can't pay back. After each raping of the population and each new austerity move, they will just simply move from Ireland to Greece to Spain to Italy to Portugal, later to France, England, and then Germany last. But instead, I mean, you've been absolutely right, it's hopping directly to France. So we've known that they were always going to, quote, bankrupt them, but am I correct in saying that it's accelerating?
It is accelerating because the hope was that at some point that the economy would grow and that there would be enough growth to grow their way out of this problem. But unfortunately, there's been a collapse in the economy. The unemployment keeps going higher, and there is no growth. Growth is going in reverse. And in countries like the UK, where they are in the process of rolling out austerity measures, there is increasing stagnation, and the population is in revolt. And the population is in revolt in countries around the world, in Athens or elsewhere. And so that's not adding to any growth. So the ability to hide the debt is becoming impossible. Now, for 25 years, it was easy to hide the debt because it was in the context of a 25-year bull market in bonds, which means that interest rates for 25 years since Reagan took office were going down. And so every time new debt was due to be paid, you could simply roll it over and add to the debt pile without actually paying it off because interest rates kept going lower. So this was, in effect, kicking the can down the road. But now you've got a situation where you've got global debt saturation, where it's impossible to hide the dirty laundry. And so now these banks are blowing up, and they're pulling out all of these unbelievably irregular, illegal banking and regulatory tricks to hide debt. If you go back to the collapse of Lehman Brothers, if you do a Google search for Repo 105, for example, Lehman Brothers was caught putting their debts onto a shadow bank a few days before they had to report their earnings to the SEC, and then taking those debts back a few days later to avoid having to report the debt. The same thing that Enron was doing.
Well, listen, I want to go over that, Max, but here's the $64 million, or I should say $64 trillion question that we've been talking about. We cover an Obama deception, Fall of the Republic, that you appear in and, again, predict all of this in, now out for almost 2 years. They've created 1.5 quadrillion conservatively in fake derivatives. They've gotten our pension funds, our stock markets tied up in them. And then the very criminals that engineered this Ponzi fraud are up there saying they're too big to fail and our entire world economy has to be fed into them. And the more we give them, the worse things get. And so how do we bring the criminals to justice? I mean, is there a point that it's coming to, or is there police state they've put in going to protect them? And if we can't bring them to justice through some avenue, and I want to hear your ideas on that, then where are they going to lead us?
Well, what the politicians are doing to try to avert this catastrophe, and we just heard it from Ben Bernanke, he wants to keep interest rates at zero for another 2 years or indefinitely. And so that's a catastrophe because it's 0% interest rates that created the securitization and the Ponzi scheme to begin with. To get to your point from the earlier segment, this is what Ron Paul has been pointing out for years. Suddenly people understand this, and now you've got a Rick Perry jumping on that bandwagon, trying to capitalize on what Ron Paul has put 10 years into educating the public about. But those 0% interest rates are the root cause of the problem, because that's how you create and securitize this debt in ways where you can move it from one balance sheet on a bank in New York to a French bank and never have it go away. And so remember that the biggest single player in the global derivatives market with $90 trillion stake